start the evening with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next up is public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to? I'm sorry. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak at this time? Nobody shy? Okay, we'll close public comment. Move on to the discussion of the personnel budget. And I think I saw Al here, didn't I? There you go.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll start off with the smallest budget first, Mayor.
There we go.
So, on the town side, we currently employ 186 full-time staff.
Excuse me, Alan, I'm sorry. Page 89 for those of you guys.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. On the town side of the budget, we currently employ 186 full-time staff. And I just want a very few comments, and then I'll answer your questions. We actually only are a department of about 5 different line items you see on that page to start with recruitment, and end up with our employee assistance program, which I always like to touch on. But very briefly, our department continues to be committed to recruit, retain, and train our personnel to be the most professional and cost-effective means to administrate fair and effective policy. Our goal is to provide staff assistance within the departments in a manner that produces a productive and positive work site. The Personnel Department is committed to provide mutually rewarding relationships with our employees, and in that capacity serves as a consultant to all department heads on matters concerning human resources. In addition, the department develops, communicates, and carries out all of the town's personnel policies, and we take a very active approach, working hand in hand with the mayor and all the department managers. That's a big goal of ours. The department formulates personnel policies which comply with employment law, recruiting, interviewing, selection, placement, and evaluation of employees. Our department provides input on compensation and benefits, and our functions include appraisal, transfer, promotion, layoff, recall, discipline, and termination of employments within the guidelines set forth in our 5 different collective bargaining agreements. The department assists in administering both exempt and non-exempt employees, and administers employee benefits and the maintenance of all personnel records. I'm sure there are a lot of challenges ahead for all of us in this room this year. Some of ours include continuing to work in compliance with the Affordable Care Act, improving health initiatives through our wellness program, more importantly, implementation of Munis, and specifically negotiating successor labor contracts with Teamsters, library supervisors, dispatchers, and hopefully a completion of the police contract. As I said in opening, we really are a pretty small group. There's just 2 of us, and myself. We appreciate the support that we've received in the past many years. Personnel recruitment. You can see on the subsequent page, we talk about those are expenses that you would expect. Those are advertising, online, print media, pre-employment screening, work simulation, background checks, etc. Normally that amount stays about the same. We've had years where we've had to come back to the table seeking more money for issues where it's been unpredictable. Somebody might resign or retire, but we're pretty consistent at $2,500. Supplies remain very consistent, pretty much as last year. The drug and alcohol testing, the way we're structured here, under federal laws, I'm sure you've heard me say before, and I'm sure you're aware of it, we must administer random drug and alcohol testing for our Teamsters. And that function has to be separated from Mike Zarba's control. So that's one of the things that I handle. That's the monthly random screening for drug and alcohol. That price is $100 per employee, and we usually estimate that at $4,100 a year. And this would include, we also do testing on currently 3 bus drivers that we use in Carolyn Hagelin Senior Bus Operation. We have a small amount of money for staff training and development, and we're able to keep that small. I would like to keep that in there because oftentimes we'll hone in on one very special training that we'd like to, for example, bring in somebody for all the managers. But most of our training that we do, and there's extensive training, we're able to get through our membership at CCM, about 50% of the training, and the other 50% now we're using our ESI, who does our employee assistance program, more and more. And those are both online trainings and live trainings. We've got scheduled actually right now numerous trainings for our managers throughout the year, 1 each quarter. And then finally, the 5th item, the $3,100 item, employee assistance program. And this is a program that, with the help of the council, we initiated, I guess, about 6 or 7 years ago. And this continues to be a very successful program. The reason I say that, it's not really what I would call a feel-good program. It's a program that, yes, through wellness, ideally gets us more productivity, it gets us better attendance, but the employees can access that program with counseling on their own, no knowledge to anybody in the organization. I sort of monitor it from statistics. And there are a lot of needs for service. Between January 1 of 14 and 12/31 of 14, we had 45 employees use the system approximately 175 times. And a lot of these things are very personal. They can be financial, behavioral, relationship issues, stress, legal, parent issues. Very effective. So the employee can access it, and also the employer, meaning, say, myself or the chief. We often will do administrative referrals into the program. These are for individuals who are having issues, could be trauma issues, could be serious health issues. And so we're actually able to work with the employee, encouraging them to participate. A healthy employee creates a safe environment, especially in a lot of the agencies that we handle here. So that works good. And then thirdly, as I said a moment ago, we started accessing the organization for much more training. And since we're paying for this $2,000 a year, I feel it's a good investment. I think there's been great payback on this, and I'd like to continue with it. If you are in agreement to approve this budget.
Thank you. Beth?
Thank you for all that you do. I had a couple of quick questions. On 92 on the drug and alcohol testing, I see that you are over the budget to date of what you were planned for and then spent to date. So I was just curious, is the amount that you're requesting enough to cover next year, given that you're over budget this year?
Yes, I feel it will.
Okay. What was the reason for it going over?
I think it's just timing. We had another individual come into the organization. Now we've had a couple leave, so it's kind of a revolving door sort of thing. So that it's not a secret way we calculate it. I usually do it, as I said, on 41 people at $100. It might go over 100, but usually it's a little under.
Okay. Okay.
There's no like hidden cost there.
Okay. And then the other is, I know as a town, we are very fortunate to have very loyal employees that stay with us for a long time, but they also are approaching retirement age, some of them. So do we have succession plans in place for those that are close to retirement and preparing to replace those positions?
Tough question. I think that we're very aware of it in most cases, and when we meet with the department heads, the mayor and I, we often discuss that issue. And I don't know whether you want to comment on it or not, Mayor, but it's it can be very interesting because a lot of our folks like to continue working, you know,
And we're very fortunate to have
further
them,
than
absolutely.
maybe they might have 10 years ago or something, I'm not sure.
Right.
But it's a constant discussion. I would say it's a discussion that goes on between myself and managers or employees all the time. And we've developed a system now where we actually have some forms that we exchange with the employees when they're thinking about retirement. And that's sort of a polite way of getting them to come forward a bit earlier and ask questions, you know, if I do this, when would I get my money? Or, you know, do I have after 65 health care? So I share in your concern. I know the mayor does as well. That's a constant one, because the most difficult thing is when someone comes into your office, and I actually had that one time. A person came in from, happened to be from the PD at that time, and said, came here to tell you I retired yesterday. So, you know, you don't want it like that. So we really have been spending a lot of time on the retirement issue. And I know Tom went and visited, you know, a lot of our employees and discussed it with them. But yeah, succession planning, I agree with you, important, especially with some of our staff right now.
Well, they just have so much knowledge, and it's difficult to capture all that knowledge. So I appreciate that you're focusing on it.
Well, you know, some of the people are happy to do a succession plan. And then others, they are attached.
Sure.
And they're very loyal, so they really don't wanna think about not even being here too. So, I don't like to lose a good person, so, we do approach it, but some are very sensitive, and you can't act like you're trying to push anybody out, cause you're not, but you wanna think about the town as a whole has to continue, and you wanna have everything covered, so when possible, we have those conversations.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a good thing to bring up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Paul took my first question. Thank you for the succession plan. My second question was, last year we spoke a little bit about safety training.
Yes.
You could kind of expound a little bit on that for this year.
Don't
Yeah.
steal my budget, or my item for the agenda on Monday night, because we're getting
Okay.
an award for safety. The Teamsters are, and that's an agenda item, so don't give all the secrets away.
Yeah, you know, risk management, safety training continues to be a big issue. We try to do something monthly. It could be safe driving. One with the highway department is very well attended every year. Snowplow training. A lot of the claims continue to be, whether it's the town side, the board side, or Big Y side, continue to be falls, slips, strains, sprains. The more bad weather, the more possible things you get, the more falls you get lifting. I think we're doing a pretty good job there, Pete. I think, FYI, we do have to have a safety committee under law. We do have one. We do comply. It's been acknowledged by the state. We do have minimum quarterly meetings, but the mayor's going to be talking at the next meeting about above and beyond that Public Works initiated, and it's been to be recognized by our carrier in May.
And we actually were doing different safety programs for things you don't think about, like in the library where people lift books and then they reach and go to put them away in the proper way of carrying the equipment or books, or just thinking about working with anything that we have, so.
Then my next question now is the Affordable Health Care Act, now going into the next year. What impact is that gonna have on the town?
Well, the initial impact is the reporting now, where I can't forget the form, I just started to read them, where we're now reporting the value of healthcare, but the financial impact to this board starts in 2018 when we start seeing the tax, I call it tax, that we'll be paying, and that will grow fairly quickly. It will start around 250,000 and it'll go beyond $1 million by 2020. So it grows. I know it's not all just about money, but
Right.
you know, those two very short responses to a very large issue.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Did you have a question? No? Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Thank you.
And next is, pension, and I know that usually we try to do the Board of Ed by itself, because I know you guys have a lot to cover, but with the snow, this week, canceling one of our nights, we had to piggyback, so I apologize,
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Council, Board of Finance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll make it as brief as I can. Let me just hand this out to you. Walter, please. Right. The pension committee is. Maybe two or three.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll go down on the right side. Mary Jane, you need in? Joanne, you need some?
There you go, we're good.
Okay. Good evening.
thank you.
Hope everybody's wondered out, as I am. Just to piggyback just for a second on what Alan has said, what the pension committee did was have the actuaries create, and I know disseminated a copy to everyone, especially on the council, which was a Q&A pension summary. What this basically does and says is that what do I get, when do I get it, how do I get it, why do I get it, survivor benefit, disability benefit. So it sums up, in summary, all the pensions for all the different employee bargaining units, non-bargaining. Doesn't involve the teachers that are certified, they're with the state, even on the BOE side, non-certified. So if you read it, you'll know what you get, when you get it, how you get it, and why you get it. So we took the mystery out of an employee question, which helped the personnel department. So someone's here 22 years and thinking about retiring, and what do I get, and how do I get it, and this sums it up. So we had the actuary do this, and this morphed from what I initially had said to this council a few years ago, the matrix. Because what the prior John Hank document had, when you read it, I didn't like it. I'll speak for myself. It was kind of convoluted. I don't think they paid much attention to it. So we needed to clean it up. And it needed to reflect the actual contracts that this town agreed to. So that's what this does. The items I handed out to you tonight is the financial value of the plan as we sit here tonight. The committee, 3 years ago, changed from John Hancock to Principal Financial after interviewing many investment, not only portfolios, but plan administrators. We changed actuaries, and we went with Principal Financial, and we diversified. And every time the Dow Jones finishes the day on an uptick, I sleep well at night. The plan from the time we went from John Hancock was $37 million, and Ray Jankowski wired, or John Hancock did, through cyberspace, $37 million. And I'm the type of guy like to deliver $37 million. So I didn't sleep that night, but I got confirmation the next day that the principal received it. So in a little less than 3 years, the plan went from $37 million in asset value to $53 million in asset value. A $16 million increase in less than 3 years, or 43%. And that was a change that the committee did in investment strategy. I also handed out to the council several months ago that in July of '09, the pension asset was only $30 million. And that was '09 in July. And today, in 2 months of December, to 2/15, it's $53 million. You notice in your budget that your annual recommended contribution went down. In the current 14-15, it's $2.45 million. In your budget, it's $2.3 million. I don't think there's a town in the state whose annual recommended contribution for their pension went down, and their unfunded liability closed. From 2010 forward, we had, or the town did, a tremendous amount of good employees retire, which put a lot of upward pressure on the plan. So think about the upward pressure and think about your annual contribution going down. So a lot of that's driven, all of that's driven by virtue of the plan asset growth. And even if the plan asset was not 53 million, but $1, you'd still be paying out the pension. What this does is help you with your annual contribution. Because in 2009, I had the actuary at the time, Milliman, do a 30-year projection on the annual recommended contribution. And today, you would be budgeting over $3 million based on the 09 actuarial for 30 years. So what you're budgeting is 2.35 million. So the town very prudently has funded its obligation, all of you have taken part in that and funded it properly and prudently, and here we are today. Just a couple more points, and then I know you got the Board of Ed. And anybody has any questions, please present it to the committee in writing. If you'd like me to come after the questions are submitted and respond to your questions, I'll be happy to. The pension plan is a different type of investment than the other fund balances of the town. I have to say that. I know there's been some discussion going on, and I just felt compelled to say it. It's a lifetime investment. So if you take $5 million today, $10 million, and you put it into this type of investment, and you have some market correction, your recapture time is not good enough. This is lifetime. So when you talk about the Board of Ed Capital Reserve, for example, or the WPCA Fixed Asset Replacement Fund, or the WPCA Capital Recovery Fund, or the Waste Management Settlement Fund, or the town's unassigned fund balance, or the town's ISF Insurance Fund, or the OPEB Trust Fund, all those funds, and a lot of them several have millions of dollars in it, cannot be treated in the investment world at this day. Because if you take a hit, you don't have time to come back. So be very cautious. I know there's been some conversation with, I think, one of the funds, I think the Waste Management Fund. If you take a hit in that, you don't have time to come back. Because there's a 10% transfer in for tax relief every year. The other 90% is used for projects. So if you had 10 million today, and tomorrow you took $1 million hit, you're not gonna get that million back in time. It's not a lifetime fund. And then 7 years from now, 6 or 7. So you gotta be careful using the same strategy in these funds that we did with the insurance, with the retirement fund. Retirement's a lifetime fund. We took a hit in 08, we've come back. And we'd be 100% funded in the unfunded liability, 100% if it wasn't for a rash of retirement that put a lot of upward pressure on. And I think the fund's doing very well. I think the committee has done a very good job. Joanne, right? George Barnett. Ray is part of that. And let's hope that this progress continues, because I don't think another town in the state can say that they have the unfunded liability, minimal unfunded liability that this town has. And it's the prudent funding that this council, Board of Finance, and administration has done over the years. And I don't think a town in the state's going to be able to say that we're budgeting less this year because we have a great rate of return on our investment.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay?
Pete has a question.
Thank you. Mr. Phillip, thank you and your committee. Bringing a 43% return and having a, what is it, $1,500 budget over 3 years? What a return on investment.
You like that?
You didn't tell him about the trip?
I try to keep the budget down by requiring all my committee members to bring their own pencils. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, just tell me, where are we gonna be funded as of July 15th? Do you have an, I know it's 80-something% now.
We're close to 90% right now.
So July 1 will be close to 90%.
I would say that we're gonna exceed the 90.
That's amazing.
Thank you, Walter.
Just on the deductions, Tom, is that pensions paid out to the
That's correct.
participant? Is there any other costs in there, like actuarial costs? or-
Yeah, there's administrative costs, but it's not bad at all. I think throughout the whole year, it's maybe 60,000, 70,000. And I think what they do is when, I'm gonna be working with the actuaries, we have a meeting on the 10th at 1 o'clock. When you ask for a printout of what I'm gonna get, there's a little fee to that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna kind of squeeze them down on the fee. I love doing that.
yeah, the principal, supply the actuary to,
No, principal is the investment,
but investment in the actuary separate.
yeah,
Okay.
that's Angel Pension. Angel Pension Group, which works tangentially with them, but they're the actuaries. And they're the ones that did the Q&A, and they're the ones who do the financials with the principal group for the July 1. So you gotta remember that the pension is concurrent with the town's fiscal year, so June 30th, July 1. And what I do is I give you a snapshot of calendar year, so you get numbers that go through all of calendar 14, and you get the fiscal analysis as of July 1. Any
All right.
questions?
Well, if you think of more questions later, we're happy to
Yeah,
send
be
it out
happy
to
to.
Tom.
Thank you.
Tom, appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, next up is Parks and Rec, and that will start on page 149. So I know you got a lot of highlights there, Dan, so let's hit those.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Calhoun, Director of Parks and Recreation. Just a quick review of our department. Our department's in charge of the maintenance and care of 20 parks and over 500 acres. We also take care of all the town buildings, the grounds around the town buildings. We have a staff of 9 full-time people and a little over 100 part-time and seasonal people. All of our recreation programs are self-sustaining. They're covered by program cost, except for our summer camp, which is at this point it's 89% self-sustaining. In that program, we probably have 350 children in that program that take place in 3 different schools in town. Some of our largest programs are our karate program, aquatics program where there's over 400 children involved, our softball program with over 1,400 people involved, our 8-mile and 5K road race. Annually we have about 600 runners participate on that during the Village Fair days. For our special events, we also have our Easter egg hunt, which probably serves about 400 children in town. And then our biggest program overall is probably our trunk or treat program, which we do downtown, which we estimate there's over 3,000 children that come to town for that. So this year's budget, we've been very conservative. We have an increase of $7,532, which is 0.67% over last year's budget. Our anticipated revenue for this year is, for recreation, is $355,421. In the parks, I believe we'll bring in $166,171 for a total of $521,592. That reimburses 46.65% of our requested budget this year. So that's really all I have, but I'm here to answer any questions that you may have for us.
Thank you, Joe.
What percentage of the fees are now paid online for programs?
I would say 60% are online with credit card. We do still have a lot of people that come into the office to pay with cash or a check, which we run through our register and through the computer system also.
About 60.
60.
It took a long time to get there, but I think it's a tremendous benefit to a lot of parents.
Oh, definitely, a lot of people can't. make it.
Especially signing up late at night, on the last minute. The next question I have is, we do, and I didn't look at the line items there, do we have the ice skating program in the budget for next year?
Yes.
And I'm pretty familiar with it. We've seen an uptick in the number of children wanting to participate. We run 250 student programs, both in the winter and in the current section. You have one young lady running that whole program for you, and she's amazing.
Yes.
19 years old, is running that entire program for you. And many people know her in the skating world, skating program. Any idea of trying to get her additional help going forward?
It's been really difficult for us to find, skaters that want to teach. Skating's not as popular as it was, say, 10 years ago when we ran the program. We used to run the program and we'd have a line out the door through the parking lot. and now, we've had to scale it down, so we're having a tough time finding instructors. We're lucky we have her. We had a great instructor for many years, and she retired.
And because you found her, the program continued
Yes.
because of this 19,
Because of her.
which is an incredible situation. She did an amazing job at that
Yeah.
program this year for you.
When you hear of a 19-year-old girl running a program like that, I was skeptical at first, but she's really done a great job.
Phenomenal. I think that's it for now, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Beth?
First off, I just want to compliment you and your staff. You hear nothing but good things in the town about Parks and Rec's program,
Thank
so
you.
you do a great job. And I personally am very thankful that the boat slip program continued as it was. That was wonderful. I just have one question about the Lynn Denning improvements, because I just wanted to make sure, see if you could give us an update on where we were, and are we still on target for that? Especially since there's not in the budget, so we just.
Yeah, we're hoping it's still on target. We just received all our approvals. We have our, first we had our planning approval, we have our wetlands approvals in place, we have zoning approvals in place. So next, I will be meeting with our engineer. We're gonna start doing bid specifications, try to get that out as soon as possible, and hopefully we can move right along with the project. But
Okay, and you think that the budget is still appropriate for
I
like?
think we should be okay. I'm hoping. It looks good.
I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Frank?
Beth asked the question, so I'm happy.
What?
Beth asked the
Beth
question,
got your question? Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Sorry.
and she did a very good job. I would have added a few things, but it was sufficient.
Like a scene.
Adequate. Adequate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank.
It was less verbiage.
Pete?
Thank you, Mayor. And as always, thank you for what you guys do. And your budget, just a quick question on that, not me. Just on the equipment, the trucks and the park and rec equipment, do you foresee additional, continuing on the same trend as you are and these particular budgets still on the same kind of trend?
Yeah, we were able to reduce that line a little bit a few years ago. Public Works Garage does a lot of our maintenance on our trucks now, so we don't have to sub that out or anything else, so that's helped us a lot. We still do our maintenance on our tractors, and if anything's serious, either Public Works will do it or we'll have to sub it out, but I think we're pretty set there.
Excellent.
We're happy with that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Dan's guys have been working with the Teamsters with regard to this year's winter maintenance program, so that's worked out really well too. So he's had the opportunity to create some bonding there.
It's been a lot of fun.
Any other questions for Parks and Rec? Gail?
Dan, with the closing of Pettibone and reconfiguration of schools, how's that gonna affect your programs at all?
Not so much with the school facility itself, with the softball fields and the playground, I'm not sure where that's gonna be in the future, so that's the only question we have.
Well, the playground is town property already, so not connected to the school.
Okay.
And the other is on Kimberly Clark property. Other questions for Parks and Rec? All right then, we'll
Thank you
move
very
on
much.
to the Board of Ed. Now, if I could get some nice strong men to move that, carry that podium, not drag it over to the side. And that way the Board of Ed can pull up to the table and we don't have to look out into the audience for everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. Oh, all right. Before they present?
No.
I'll take that and give them.
And we did. Follow up. I was sitting here thinking, I don't want to stay awake until our turn is up. Yeah, we'll do that first. Yeah, don't want to. Well, hang down. welcome to the 2015-16, if you can believe it, budget discussion. So Jean Ann, if you want to, or Angie, introduce everybody and then give us a little overview.
Okay, absolutely. Good evening, I'm Angie Chastain, and I'm this year's chairman of the Board of Ed. This evening, helping me present will be Dr. Jean Ann Pattyfoot, superintendent of schools. Mr. Josh Smith there on the end, he's the assistant superintendent. Mr. Jay Hubblebank here in the middle is our director of physical services. And behind them, we have Mrs. Laura Olson, our director of pupil personnel and special services. Beside her is John Calhoun, our facilities manager. And on the end is Ms. Roberta Pratt, our director of technology. And they're going to be helping me present and answer questions this evening. We're going to do a little, we had an overhead presentation. We're going to do it a little more low tech, so you have the handout here in front of you. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share the budget with you. I'm very excited about this budget, and I hope that you will share my enthusiasm. This school year has been an extremely busy one. The administration has worked tirelessly to bring about a transition for students and staff in grades K through 8 due to a decision from the Board of Ed to close John Pettibone School at the end of this school year. You'll see in this budget presentation that the board has taken the cost savings from John Pettibone and reinvested them into our students to bring forth a budget that continues to support our mission and yet is also fiscally responsible. The bottom slide there on page 1, Dr. Pattyfoot brought forth a requested budget of $62,145,903, or a 1.94% increase. The budget was reduced by the Board of Ed to $61,578,808, or an increase of 1.1%. This is an overall increase of $617,030, $578,940 is operating expenses, and $38,090 is capital. I'm going to turn the page. Yeah. We have some very exciting things going on at New Milford Public Schools. I'm just going to highlight a few of those things. This year we implemented a new K through 6 math program. The math program was piloted last year and it was implemented this year. We're receiving some very positive feedback about that. Our Project Lead the Way program, or our quote-unquote engineering courses at New Milford High School, received full certification. This means our students can now earn college credit for taking these courses. This program is highly sought after by our students and is very popular. We have increased the number of our students who are taking AP classes. This increases our rigor, and it also allows students another opportunity to earn college credit while still in high school. We are in year 2 of our teacher and administration evaluation plan. We are continuing to update our technology infrastructure. We now have Parent Portal at both the New Milford High School and Schaghticoke Middle School. This allows parents to log in and check their students' grades, their attendance. Most teachers post homework. This is very popular among the parents, the students, maybe not so much. I spoke earlier about the transition, and I'd like to get into a little more detail about that, and that's on the second page, the bottom slide there. With closing of John Pettibone School, that will realign our grades. Northville and Hill and Plain will go from a K through 3 building to be K through 2. Sarah Noble will go from a 4 through 6 building to a 3 through 5. And Schaghticoke Middle School will go from 7 and 8 to a 6 through 8. And at all these schools, except the high school, there will also be internal moving. So it's much more than just closing John Pettibone. It's really a K through 8 transition. Some of the things we're doing to support that transition, we've added 3 additional buses. So there was some concern by parents early on about the ride from Gaylordsville to Hill and Plain. These buses will help alleviate that and shorten that ride, and it will also help shorten the ride for the Schaghticoke students because there'll be another grade there as well. This also budget includes moving costs for all 5 buildings. We've added a transition administrator for Schaghticoke, and we have the program managers who are working with the parents and staff to facilitate the move. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Hubblebank. He's our numbers man, and I will let him take care of that.
Thank you, and good evening to everybody. Nice to be here tonight. If you look at the slide that's on the bottom of the page there. It really gives you an idea of where our budget's gone over the years, so it gives you some history. Obviously, we all know the country went through some economic tough times for quite a while, and things are better, but still working on that. And you can see over the years, the board asked for an average of about 2.75% increase, and the town was able to do a 1.03, and we're in the middle there in terms of where the CPI was over these past few years. So that just gives you an idea of where we've been over these years. And along with that, if you turn to the next page, I give you a breakdown of the revenue that the town gets based on educational programs. It's an average about 13.5 million, been pretty consistent over the last 5 years. Did I skip a page?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep. There you go. I didn't turn it over, you know, back in All right. So let me go back to the enrollment, because really, when you look at the budget, obviously enrollment drives a lot of that. And you can see on the top of the page there, we've shown enrollment back from 2009-10, and on the left there, I show the grade configuration during that period of time. And as you go over to the right, before the projected enrollment, you'll see how we changed the grade configuration. So to give you an idea, for example, where Schaghticoke this year, we have it at 682 students. Next year, we're looking at over 1,000 students because we're moving that 6th grade up there. So that just gives you an idea. You can see below there with the Sherman students also, that's important when we talk about revenue later as well. We have about 96, and we're projecting next year 93. They also are experiencing decreases in enrollment, so we're calculating. I think they're actually in the process now of picking, the students are in the process now of picking which school they'll go to. We'll have a better idea in a few weeks, but that's the projection we're in. That shows, by the way, an overall decrease, obviously, in our enrollment of about 600, a little over 630 students since 2009-10. In our staffing, which obviously enrollment and staffing go together, you can see over, we showed from 2009-10 as well, we had a high of 629.46. For those of you who don't know, we call it FTE, full-time equivalents. So we have numbers of people who are not full-time, and so that's where the .46 comes from. And you can see next year we're projecting a staff of 604.04. That's a decrease over this period of time of a little over 25 staff. It's about a 4% decrease during that period of time. All right? And now the page I was talking about before, if I can find it again. Totally got this out of order. Here we are. All right. I will start talking a little bit about revenue. This revenue here that you see on this slide is the revenue that goes directly to the town. And I know you use that as part of your revenue that you get. And so it's been interesting. Obviously, most of it comes from the educational cost sharing grant. We put in there for next year, projected, and after talking to Ray, we put in there the same amount we're getting this year. Right now, the governor's budget says it's going to be flat. We hope we hope it'll go up, but we hope it at least be flat. You see the other big number again is the Sherman tuition. I mentioned that before. We are projecting a little over 1.1 million. We're in negotiations with them in terms of a contract for next year. Our contract ends this year, so that's why there's a little increase there, but it's really based on 93 students for next year. The other, obviously, are smaller amounts. The tuition other is other students from outside, other than Sherman, who come to the school, and we always get 2 or 3 of them every year that come to school here as well. The bottom slide there, I tried to give you a little breakout of where the money goes. And as you can see, salary and benefits, if you combine the two of them, make up over 75% of our budget. Really, a school district is really the staff. So that's where our money goes to. But I will point out that in the salary line, we're up a little under 1%, and that's coupled with our contract that we just signed with the teachers, which was about a 3% increase. So we've really been able to keep our staffing costs down even with that increase in that contract. And under benefits, you can see our decrease right now is $300,000. That's really, as part of the teacher negotiations, we changed the medical contract from a PPO, a preferred benefit plan, to an HSA, and all the staff will be moving into an HSA next year. It's significantly cheaper for us and for the staff, for that matter, as well. So you can see we actually got a 1.8% decrease in our medical expenses for next year. So that was a significant help to us for next year. Purchase service line, that line went up, and it's primarily involved with software licenses, some increases in software because we're going to be expanding that parent portal that we talked about earlier. Also, the state's charging for fingerprinting is going up significantly. We understand from about, I think it's $16, $18 now, to close to $60 next year. And, you know, we fingerprint all of our volunteers and we cover those costs, so that's a significant increase for us next year. Additionally, the next line, the purchase service line's up $222,000. I'm going to talk about that a little later. That's primarily the moving expenses, one-time moving expenses that we budgeted for next year. And I'll give you a breakout of that shortly. The next line, other purchase services. I love all these names, but so they can put the auditors home. So other purchase services, primarily, it's our increase in our buses. As the chairman noted, we have added 3 buses that cost us about $79,000 a bus. So it's about 170. I'm sorry, let me get the right number.
It used to be 55.
Yeah, it's 59,000. Yeah, and so
Scared me.
yeah, it's 59, not 79, 59,000. But that's, you know, figures times 3. It's a big number there for us. So that has a big impact. And the other lines, you can see supplies is actually down, and our equipment line is really our technology and capital items that we're purchasing for next year. All right, so now if we go to page 6, all right? Yeah, I want to go over the cost savings that we had for JPS and where we came from there. This is a summary of the cost savings. In certified staff, we eliminated 6 positions, under non-certified 4, and then we had other facility savings. And the page below, the slide below shows you the certified staff. Those are all the teachers and administrators that are certified. Currently at John Pettibone, we have 30.61 staff, you can see there. And we are eliminating 6 of them. Those are 3 regular ed teachers, a remedial reading teacher, a librarian, and the principal's position. So those are the positions. The other positions are moving to various schools depending on the population and where they go. So if you turn that page over, I worked out the costs to show you what the costs are and what we've saved in terms of those staff. That's an estimated salary line. Obviously, we don't know exactly, but when I did the budget, that's the position. That's what we eliminated out of the budget. So you can see 3 regular ed teachers, about $150,000 in salaries plus fringe benefits. As I'm sure you do, we use an average for fringe benefits because you don't know whether somebody takes some kind of health insurance and that kind of thing. So that's where the $511,000 that I show on that summary page comes from for the certified staff savings. Below that is the non-certified staff. And you can see at John Pettibone, we had 21.32 currently have 21.32 non-certified staff. We're eliminating 2 custodians, a secretary, and the para-nurse. I just want to mention with the para-nurse, you'll see underneath there, we did not eliminate a nurse, the John Pettibone nurse. That nurse is going to go to Scatico because of the huge increase, over 300 kids increase at Scatico. So we'll have 2 full-time nurses there. All right. And again, if you turn that page over, you'll see how I turned up with the cost savings on that. About a little under $190,000. And again, we use contract numbers that we have for those staff salaries. The slide below that gives you a breakdown. These are the other costs, if you will, associated with running JPS. It's on page 8, up to the bottom of page 8. And you'll see garbage collection, supplies, and so on. And you notice in the 15-16 column, there is some money in that column for JPS. That building will still have it for, I'm not what the timetable is going to be yet at this point, but we're still going to need to be able to provide water, sewage, electrical, heat the building potentially. So we have budgeted a percentage in there for maintaining the building until such time as the board determines what's happening there. So you'll see those items in there, about $39,500. So we saved approximately in the budget about $100,000 in the facility costs that we had associated with the facility this year that we won't have for next year. Right. Go to page 9. Yep. I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Homelbank. As Mrs. Chastain said at the outset, this budget really is about our year of transition and reinvesting in the New Milford Public Schools. And she's excited about the budget as I am because we are making a lot of enhancements and a lot of improvements to our district. So I'll just take you through this chart at the top of page 9. The first thing would be a district-wide talented and gifted teacher. And we've had one enrichment teacher for a number of years. It's very exciting that we'll add another person K-8. We are also adding an additional social worker with the emphasis at the elementary level. We do find that we have more families coming in with mental health with children coming in with mental health issues, and we definitely need a social worker to be split between the two elementary schools. The next positions, business education, tech ed, and math, are due to our increased graduation requirements at New Milford High School, beginning with the graduating class of 2017. We've increased graduation requirements to 26. And we need to start with our current sophomores to meet that requirement. We're adding 3 more positions. And basically what this means is we want to eliminate the number of study halls that some students are taking. The next one is the alternative ed position. Some of you may recall at Bridge Street, we used to have an alternative ed program. We actually had 2. We had a behavior intervention program and an alt ed program. When we eliminated those positions and put them back at the high school, we found that we still had a need for students to be off campus. There's some students at the high school is just too big, they have anxiety, whatever they may have, they have some issues. And we actually run this program at the central office down on the main floor, first floor. And then we are adding a tech ed teacher. This will be our second tech ed teacher at Scatico. And also the transition administrator to help with the transition of the 5th graders to grade 6.
And I'm back on the cost, and below that is the cost that we came up with that's in the budget to cover those positions. I believe if we go to page 10.
Can I ask a question here? What exactly does a tech ed teacher do?
Well, that person is doing 21st century skills, doing a computer program with all of the students in grade 7 and 8.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure which tech.
Right, right,
Not break and
exactly.
fix.
Okay, I spoke earlier about reinvesting the cost savings from Pettibone back into the students, and the top slide on page 10 shows a couple of the ways that we are doing this. We are providing funds for a 6th grade after-school exploratory language program. That was something the parents really wanted. We weren't able to move it into the day since we, pretty much took 6th grade as it was and we're moving it to Scatico. So this is an alternative that we came up with to add it after school for those students who are interested. Another thing we're doing is activity buses for both Scatico and New Milford High School. We find that some students aren't able to stay after and participate in the programs because they don't have a ride home. Well, now they do. The bus will not be a door-to-door service. There'll be pre-planned drop points throughout town. And there'll be a schedule that parents will know, when their student will be there, they can, make other arrangements, what have you. We're also gonna have science fairs at Sarah Noble, Scatico, and New Milford High School. That's something that parents have wanted for a long time. It also goes along with our STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math emphasis. We're expanding our Project Lead the Way at both into the junior high at Scatico, and then also adding additional classes at New Milford High School. Additionally, one thing that we really wanted to accomplish in this budget is provide a pathway to student success not based on their family's financial status. So by that, we are paying for 10th and 11th grade PSAT tests. Studies have shown students who take both do 180 points better on the SAT than students who did not. We're also offering SAT prep courses to juniors. So a couple things to help students get into college, hopefully get some merit scholarships and things of that nature. We are also going to pay 50% of all students' AP tests. Those are going up in cost. If a student takes more than one, it can be cost prohibitive for some students. And those are really great opportunities for students to earn some college credit in high school. And last but not least, we are eliminating pay to play. So the total cost of these initiatives is $136,038. I feel this is a very small price to pay for removing financial means as a way to student success. And back to Jen.
So just for a summary, as I pointed out, in this budget, we've saved about $800,000 in closing JPS, and we've added about $700,000 back in to cover the enhancements and the reinvesting in New Milford Public Schools that we talked about. So that was how we got there. So I'm going to let you know where those monies went. The last page, or second to last page, one of the things that we did add to this budget are one-time moving expenses associated not only with JPS closing, but also with the grade configuration. As we've talked about, it's not just closing JPS, there'll be people from Sarah Noble moving to the Scatico, and people from each school moving around. So it's gonna take quite a lot of work. Mr. Calhoun Has spent quite a bit of time, talking with movers. We actually have specialized movers to deal with libraries. Didn't know that there were people who did that, but I know now. And we really, when you start thinking about it, it makes sense. You really need to make sure you do the way you move those books and put them back and all this. So it is a specialized skill. Contractors, we also hired some contractors to go into, help us move some things out of JPS that we can't do ourselves. Some security equipment that's there that we wanna put in another school. There's, some screens, what do we call them? Gates that we put in there and we wanna use in some other schools. So some of those things we can't move ourselves, we need to bring some people in. We're also looking to bring in some summer help to help with the moving as well. And we did put in a contingency of $65,000. It's really just what it is, for things that we, as much as we've been planning and working with our outside folks, and I've talked to other business managers who've been through this, things come up that you just can't think about, that you can't identify, so that's what that's about. So, we also have done, you wanna do that?
Well, as you can see from the next slide at the bottom of page 11, we looked at capital technology, and we're trying to replace 200 computers that we purchased in 2007, and also replace 5 servers. So we did reduce the capital, the board did reduce the capital overall, with the expectation that they would come back at some point in time and ask the town council and board of finance to dip into the capital reserve, so that we can continue to keep our capital technology and capital facilities up to date at least. And as you can see, for the facilities, replace playground equipment at Helen Plain in Northville. If you recall that big slide, it's actually still there. That's the big slide in Helen Plain that needs to be removed. It's not safe, and so we want to put some additional playground equipment down there. Also, security enhancements, and Mr. Calhoun would be very appreciative if he could finally replace the electrician's van.
And there's a complete list of all the capital items in the back of your book, these are just the highlights.
And in closing, the budget that we have proposed maintains the board's commitment to provide quality education to the children of New Milford, while also presenting the town with a fiscally responsible budget. The closing of JPS has given us the opportunity to improve services to students while simultaneously addressing the economic realities of New Milford.
Thank you. And the first question out of the box is from Joe.
I've been relatively shy through this budget process. I'm gonna try and make up for it right now on several things. First and foremost, you all know how greatly I appreciate how much the council appreciates the elimination of pay to play. I've been involved in local politics for 10 years, and I have been quite outspoken about it. We want our children to be healthy, we want to eat healthy, and they need to be able to participate in sports when they can. And I went to public school, never had to pay for it, and I do not believe any child should. So I'm very grateful to see that is out of there. Hats off to Mr. Lawson. I'm sorry he's not here tonight, because I know he shares my sentiment on that one issue, perhaps. Your budget, this has been a very difficult year for the Board of Ed and administrators. And you have all stepped up to the plate this year and done a very difficult and challenging job. Have had to make very difficult decisions. And I am very grateful, and I believe this town is very grateful for all the effort this year. Your budget is about a 1% increase. That's a lot of hard work. This transition with the school is a lot of hard work, and that is all greatly appreciated. In a very difficult situation that I don't even think the council has to address at that level all that often. So we're very thankful to the administration and the BOE on that. My next thought was, are we, and this goes to something I bring up almost every year, and I phrase it in different ways. I see you're going to remove the remedial reading teacher. Are we going to be okay with that? And the reason, and let me preface it, one of the things that I've always questioned our ability to do and accomplish is make sure we're there for the students who are the middle of the road. Our students who excel, we know they can. They don't have a problem with the programs. Our students with unique needs, We know we're there for them. It's the students in the middle that I'm always concerned about. And that, I see that remedial reading teacher coming out, and that will flow into one other question, sub-question, is guidance counselors. Do we have enough? I've come to realize that the need for them, and are we addressing, and I think they help address those issues for students in the middle, who I think get lost in the system. And to me, it's the students who may not be accomplishing in one particular area, be it reading or math or languages, and they struggle. Do we identify them? Do we have a system in place? Or are we leaving it to parents to put forth the effort to help the students who are missing in a class or two class? And because they're in the middle, they don't get the attention and focus, and yet those students struggle as much as at either end. If that is not a compound question, I don't know if I ever had one.
Mr. Smith can handle the remedial reading one, and then I'll start with the guidance, and then maybe you want to chime in with service.
Sure. So, we'll see if we can tap as many of those points as possible. So, I would say at some level, there's probably a lot of things in this budget when you say, do you have enough of, you can always say more, but at some point you have to make decisions and prioritize. So currently, each of our elementary schools, Northville and Hill and Plain, have 2 reading teachers. JPS, with a smaller population, has 1 reading teacher. Next year, Hill and Plain will have 2 reading teachers, Northville will have 2 reading teachers, and the student population will be about the same as it is now. So the ratio of reading teachers to students will be the same next year as it is now, as is true with Sarah Noble. We have 3 reading teachers at Sarah Noble now with approximately 1,000 students. Next year we'll have 3 reading teachers with approximately 1,000 students. So the overall impact to reading teachers, the ratio of reading teachers to students is going to remain the same next year. In addition to that, we've changed our elementary schedules this year to build in what we're calling WIN blocks, or what I need. They're really intervention blocks, or enrichment blocks. What we're saying is that we've built in universal assessments. We've built in screenings to help us identify where students are, not just in reading, but in math, literacy, and then we adjust for a half-an-hour day for literacy and a half-an-hour day for math, adjust the students so that we can meet their needs, whether they need extensions because they're at or above what we would expect them to be, or whether they're struggling, not necessarily at a very remedial place, but kind of those students in the middle. And so we've already built in some supports in addition to the reading teacher supports.
But that's at the elementary level.
Correct. At Sarah Noble as well.
Okay.
So K-5 next year will have that structure in place. Right now it's K-3. Sarah Noble's structured a little differently. We didn't completely retool Sarah Noble's schedule this year to include that. And then next year it'll be more of an incremental change at Sarah Noble to include those intervention blocks. But they exist at Sarah Noble now. So does that answer the reading teacher piece?
To a degree, and I guess then it flows into the guidance counselors. My perspective is that those are the ones who try to help the students in the middle who are missing, in whether it be just in math or just in English. Those are the people that I think I'm very concerned about, because I know we're getting them at the top and those with the special needs.
Well, we haven't cut any guidance counselors, despite the fact that our enrollment has been declining. So even when Scatico lost 300 some odd students, because the 6th grade was at Sarah Noble, we never cut any guidance counselors at Scatico. And district-wide, we haven't cut guidance counselors. When we had 800 students, let's say, at the elementary schools, when they were K-5, we had a full-time guidance counselor. However, when Sarah Noble opened, those positions were reduced to 0.5. So overall, we haven't cut any guidance positions. And the way it's working next year is that because we're closing Pettibone, that half-time position is going to Scatico because they are getting more students. But I think you have to look at the entire continuum of related services, because you have guidance counselors, you have psychologists, and you have social workers. And really and truly, when Mr. Smith was talking about intervention, and SERBI is what we call it, scientific research-based intervention, you have SERBI teams really looking much more closely than we ever did, I think, at student needs and how students are performing. So I think that we have a safety net for the types of students or concerns that you're talking about.
Thank you. I will pass it.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, everyone.
year. I'm very excited to see the expansion of programs at the high school. My daughter is loving the engineering programs, so it's fabulous, and seeing the AP programs and the PSAT, it's fabulous, and it's really preparing them for those next phases in their life, and helping the parents also get ready financially for those. So thank you for doing that, I do appreciate it. My one main question, I think it's on everyone's brains, is the Pettibone School and the building itself. I see that you've got the $39,000 for next year. Is that going to be enough to just basically mothball it for the year to keep it operating, or is there something that we need to consider further?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we put, as you can see in there, enough for, I think, electrical and heat and those kind of things for that building. You know, there's not gonna be much staff, if any, in there. I don't know what the need for, what the eventual use will be of it. So that's part, until I know that, I can't. But I think we've got enough to cover certainly electric, heat, those kind of basic services to keep the building, you know, in good shape.
And then would there be any additional security requirements, since it will be an empty building?
Well, we do have security in there now, you know, certainly, obviously. We do plan to use, by the way, one of the custodians we're transferring to the high school as really an interim going at JPS for a time until we're set with whatever we want to do with the building. So that's one thing we're going to do, and we'll be doing that. In terms of security, John, you think we need time?
Basically, we'll have we will have it staffed for a good portion of, through the summer into the fall and everything. So there'll be someone there during the day. And of course, at night, we probably will still have cameras monitoring the facility, so.
Okay. And then the playground equipment that's there now, I know some of it is a little older, but if the rest of it's in pretty good condition, can we move any of that, or do you want
Yeah,
us?
we're gonna move the better pieces, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
From the other place.
Yes, not the,
Not the
creative playground, creative playground.
Yeah, I was just checking, I don't want John to get too excited.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
You can leave.
I'll
Thank
be
you.
watching, yeah. Okay, Frank?
Yeah, I'm looking this over as you were thumbing through it, I could think of death by PowerPoint.
It's my fault.
I was overwhelmed with the numbers and everything, and you get bored and you. But what I was thinking of, I think the most important page here is the one on 9, reinvesting in New Milford Public Schools. The money that you were saving from Pettibone, you have creatively, I think, invested in the students. I just look at the teachers that you're going to hire and the experiences that they'll have with the interaction with the kids. And they're going to turn some kids on. And they're going to save some kids from going down the wrong path. I don't know how you quantify that in dollars, but it's been my experience when you can interact with a kid on a one-to-one basis, you make a difference in that kid's life. So I'm supporting this, if nothing else, than this little box on page 9 at the top of the page.
Thank you, Frank. Good. Pete?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Angie, Superintendent, for the budget. I just had a couple questions, and thank you for this actual handout with look backs. I think that's very
good.
very good. Really appreciate that. One question I have to start off with on the revenues. So we're looking at Sherman, which is $1 million revenue generator. So when a parent or a child looks to either come to, what are their choices, Milford, New Fairfield, or Chicago? So when that particular student is looking to enroll in one of the 3 schools, have we kind of figured out what they're looking at as far as offerings that they want, what they have? It's $1 million generator, so I'm just wondering, did we ever accumulate any data on what that particular segment would want?
I don't know that we have any hard data. We do send our guidance counselors there, as I'm sure Chappaq and New Fairfield are invited. In my discussions with the superintendent in New Fairfield, and somewhat with Mr. Fifdahl, who was the former high school principal in New Milford. It seems that the families that live closer to New Fairfield, those students do opt to go over there because they either, have friends over there, they belong to other activities with those students. What I'm hearing about, maybe Mr. Hubblebank, who lives over in Washington, knows a little bit about this. I think that the students that gravitate towards Chapag are usually students. Chapag, every student that goes out for sport is my understanding automatically makes the
Pretty
team.
much.
Need every kid you can get over.
So the families make that decision, if the student would not be on a team at the high school or in certain clubs and activities, are more inclined to do it. Plus, in the Chapag contract, Chapag provides the bus for Sherman.
It's a little
But,
cheaper.
we don't know, did we ask the other night when we met how many students are going to Chapag?
There's not, I don't think there's more than 25.
Right, the majority comes from the Milford.
We have a better swimming pool than we do.
We have Canada. That's right.
My next
But they
question is
used
on
to-
slide 3, 5, that's the 2015-16, looking at the budget history.
Sure.
So looking at the trajectory of the actual incremental increases. So this year, proposed 15-16, we're at 1.01. If we're looking out, maybe 1 to 2 years out, are we seeing more of a median increase of what we're looking at in the 3s and 4s? Is the one based on the JPS closure?
I think, as I said before, 76% of our costs are staff and benefits. So clearly this year, we were lucky our health benefits were down, so that's a significant savings. And clearly with the JPS cuts, we were able to add stuff back, so it kept us, relatively even. I think my biggest concern would be more in the health area, health benefit area in the future, in the near future. I don't see, given what we know about our enrollment, that enrollment's gonna drop enough to make huge cuts in staffing over the next few years, but the health benefits is the area where usually you're looking at 8 to 10% increase. We're lucky this year, and health is a $7 million part of our budget, so 8 to 10% increase is a big number, so that's where I can't give you the answer, but that's where I think the danger, the concern for me is in the future.
And looking we saw the one-time savings as far as closing
So,
JPS, and then it looks like there's some additional savings annually.
oh,
So is there a thought process of continuing on in the reinvestment? And if so, what are some of the things you're looking at into the horizon?
well, Roberta gave me a list the other day of technology. I can go on forever there. In terms of the other things, that would be,
I think that would be contingent on the board, and the board members that come up on. We're always looking to improve and to upgrade and to reinvest in the students, so that's, I think I can confidently say, yes, we're going to do that, but exactly how, I can't give you specifics.
And the emphasis, as you said before, it was more in the STEM type.
At this point, yes.
Okay, great.
Offering different things for the high school students, trying to reach, all students, not just the ones that are going to college, but all students. So that is, something else we've talked about, just right off the top of my head, that's what I.
Other questions? Walter?
Just more out of curiosity on the AP testing that you're planning on subsidizing, what's the cost per test?
$90.
How much?
$90.
$90, and if
Just
they're
wrote a
taking
$180 check, so I can confidently say it's $90 a piece.
that would be the total cost, not subsidy cost, right?
Right, that's the total
Okay.
cost, so that we would provide 45 of that,
Okay.
unless it goes on.
It's not going to.
Sure, okay, good.
Good, Walter. Thank you, Beth?
Sorry, I forgot a couple of things. One, I forgot to mention, thank you also for increasing the TAG program. I know Dr. Cooper does a phenomenal job, but she's one person. So I'm very excited that she will finally have help, and that's wonderful news. Then the second is, I know a couple of years ago you had a subcommittee of parents and teachers and the like to do a 5-year plan. Are we coming up to the end of that, or are we?
We certainly That's what I think.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question.
Thank you, Dan.
Let's see, a couple things. Oh, on page 8, we were talking about JPSA and one of certain things like garbage collection, supplies, that kind of stuff. Some of that cost must shift over to the schools as we reconfigure, right?
We didn't think significantly. We looked at it when we were looking at our costs. I mean, like even electrical, we were concerned that we Scattercoke use more because there's more kids, but kind of use all the rooms anyway now, so, you know, but we were looking at some of those. We made some adjustments.
Okay. You're talking about the expansion of the talented and gifted programs. At least in my experience, those have usually been relatively narrowly defined as to what students are talented and gifted, usually ending up in science and mathematics. I'm interested in how you're expanding the program and whether that includes kids in fine arts and other things where they really have talented kids, or whether, again, they're going to be left out in favor of science and math and a very tightly defined academic definition.
So,
I know we currently have, I think, a poetry, a music, you know, we do have other things
Okay,
besides
right.
science and math, that Mr. Smith can definitely elaborate on that.
so we have two definitions of what we would say gifted. There's a formal definition of kind of the top 1% on an assessment, but we've worked pretty hard to expand that definition so that we have high achieving students in lots of different definitions. And we're talking about adolescents in most cases, that even if you're gifted in mathematics in 3rd grade, that doesn't mean you won't be gifted in art in 4th grade, or, you know, we don't want to pigeonhole a student into, you're a gifted math student at 9 years old, and that's it forever, you know, and that's closed. So we've been bringing more and more programs that we're able to do, maybe pieces of it where we pull some real high achieving students for part of the day, and then pieces of that program, we have like a simple machines program that we bring in, and we invite, you know, 2 or 3 times what we would consider the gifted population to participate. And those students aren't labeled in any way, shape, or form. They're, you know, we push it into regular classrooms. When we talk about this position here, you know, we have a couple of different ways that we can push this in. We've had lots of conversation, but we didn't go too far until we get through the budget process and it survives. So there's a couple of ways that we can talk about this, where part of this person's job would be around, we're really thinking of problem solving, and we want students at any level with any definition to be good problem solvers. What we know is that we don't know tomorrow's problems, and so we need to teach our students to persevere, to recognize failure, to learn from failure, to be okay with failure and not be so concerned about getting it right that they don't move forward. And we want them to know that there's lots of problems with no answers, and so we want them to wrestle with that. So this position, however we completely structure it at the end, that will really be the focus of how we kind of implement this. And then the more we can do kind of those whole group enrichment type class activities where, whatever, once a month, this person may come in and work with a whole group of students, whole class, no definitions, around those kinds of activities. That's really how we see this position being put in.
Now, Andy touched on it just really briefly, but I see a lot in SAT preparation and the rest, and there seems to be, particularly nationally, almost this focus on evaluating high schools based on how many go to college, and so there seems to be this race to funnel all students into college. And then, of course, it's creating a problem because we're getting a lot of kids who end up in college for a year or two, end up leaving because it isn't for them, and with tremendous debts and everything else. And what I'm wondering is, as you're, again, enhancing these programs, what are you doing for kids who are not really headed for college, and in all truth, should be looking seriously at alternative routes to a good life?
Yeah, sure.
So there's a couple answers to that, and one of them is whether you go, so not just SAT prep. The SAT prep's a half-year course that we offer to juniors, and some of that was really about leveling the playing field. Students with economic means always took SAT prep classes, or students who had parents who told their child, you're taking the class, took classes. And this is an opportunity for all students to get that experience so that they have the same opportunity when it comes to taking a test. I would say the move to increase AP offerings, advanced placement offerings, gets not just to the college readiness piece. One of the things that we know for sure is that if you take an AP class, it doesn't matter if you get an A+ or a C-, whether you take the exam or don't take the exam, you're much more likely to be successful in college. What happens, part of the reason freshmen drop out of college is because it's the first time they've been in a class of that level of rigor. So if you can expose a student to that in high school, their chances of survival in that freshman year increase tremendously. Even if you're not going to high school or college and you take an AP class in high school, you get a level of rigor and engagement in a content that you normally don't get otherwise. So one of the things, for example, an AP class does is it takes students who might have been C students in other classes. If they're very interested in the subject and they get to really explore it in a way that they haven't before, they become much more successful. So those are things that, regardless if you're going to college or not, we've increased the engineering structure at the high school. We've added in this program more drafting classes. So even if you're not necessarily going into architectural drafting in a post-high school career, those skills around how to use a CAD program are very attractive to manufacturing. So even if you're leaving high school and you have experience on how to use a CAD program, those become marketable skills. And the same thing with that engineering. Even if you don't apply that to a formal college education, the ideas of simple machines and how to build circuits and how to problem solve, how to create things to solve a problem, those are all transferable skills. I also think that when you look at our health department, we have students who are leaving with paramedic certification. We have students that leave with CPR and the CNA and the early childhood. So there are some other avenues, if you're not interested in building things or manufacturing, that you can kind of go that other healthcare route, and our high school really does provide a pretty rich experience for you.
So there is an opportunity to go more what we might call a traditionally call anyway a vocational route.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, and now in reconfiguring the schools and looking at the 5th grade now as being the top in Sarah Noble, is that going to be done in the team approach that the 6th grade had when they were there, or will the 5th grade be taught in a one classroom, regular elementary setting as they have been?
There's no plan to change the way the 5th grade teachers align themselves in that grade.
Okay, just curious. Oh, and the pay to play. Now, does this extend into things like the band and that kind of thing, the support for their uniforms or whatever, or are we just simply talking about the athletic kids again?
The band never did do pay to participate,
Okay.
and they have a huge band booster, like the athletic boosters that provides a lot of those costs. So there really wasn't a fee associated with band ever.
Okay. Now, in the last budget, as I recall, you increased your substitute teacher pay by about $5 a day. And I thought that was good because it made us more competitive. However, it's come to my attention recently that you kind of stubbed your toe as far as I'm concerned. Your HR department has some policies that dock pay from substitutes when you have a delayed opening and they're only paid on a pro-rata basis where they used to be traditionally paid a full day. And districts around us are still paying a full day. That doesn't sound to me like it makes us competitive. That and the fact that scheduled early dismissals now are facing the same thing, and again, surrounding districts don't do that. So, in other words, why would we be attracting the best of the substitutes here to New Milford if we've got policies that are really working against them?
It's my understanding that was the practice, and then due to several complaints, we changed that practice.
Okay, so that's no
the
longer
people that were
practice.
on the sub list that were caught in that situation did receive an email from Ms. Baldelli indicating that would no longer be the practice.
Oh, could your IT person please comment on what you're doing to update technology? Because I've heard some rumors that you're scrapping your current operating system platform.
Sure. I'll come to the table.
Here, right up here, and I'll go over here for a few minutes.
Thank you. So when I came to New Milford, we had an Novell operating system for the district, and because we're a school system, we are able to get Microsoft licensing for the servers for free. The servers needed to be updated, they were old, and many of our programs don't run on Novell. We're actually running Windows servers on Novell, which were causing many issues. Just logging in, getting information, any teachers that you spoke with would be be able to fill you in on that. So, there's also, there's very few vendors that can work on Novell, so the prices for that are very high. Prices with Novell are very high, whereas Microsoft is much more competitive, so if the prices are too high, you can look elsewhere.
Okay. Now, how does that relate to security? Because Microsoft is one of course, one of the most attacked systems that's out there. If it's gonna be hacked, it's gonna be Microsoft.
Well, that's true, that starts with, it would be your router, your firewall, and what's allowed inside. And we have a pretty good handle because we're building the network from the ground up. So we're putting in our own policies. We're doing a lot of testing to make sure that we have that right. It's not something that we're just flipping a switch and moving over. It's gonna take a little bit of time to make sure we have it right. But again, that starts at the edge, and I have a great network administrator who is very good at fine tuning what we need to have done. Not that it's never gonna happen, as we know in today's day and age where you have.
I think that's it for me.
Good deal, thank you. Well,
I may have to make a correction here. The increase with the mayor's reduction brings the increase in your budget 0.36. So it's not even a 1% increase. It's almost flat. And that's amazing. I'll mention.
Don't leave me hanging, don't forget the part where it was replaced with money from the internal service.
I leave that to you.
Oh, okay.
Parent portal, first few days of it, I was a little concerned, but it's working out, and it's great, because I can say, did you get the following assignment done? And she'll say, what are you talking about? So it does, it fills a gap. It puts parents in a position to ask and make sure their children are getting things done. And it looks like it gives rapid access to information, which is where we are in society today. So it seems to be, from my perspective, working out. Now, it's I gotta bring up something, it's just gonna be a little challenging across the board. First of all, did we address the leak in the high school theater? Have we fixed that?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like, do you wanna know how we're addressing it?
That would be wonderful. Are we addressing it? Is it still leaking?
No.
You wanna-
No, what we found is there was a sprinkler pipe that ran underneath the concrete, had an elbow on it, the concrete wall where the pit is and the pour separated, causing a little twist in the joint, and it caused a little pin leak, and it was coming up through a crack. So we bypassed that, we worked with our fire marshal here. So we have a temporary solution, but there is no more water leak. But then we will have to address that through engineering or possibly jackhammering and removing that over the summer.
Another topic that's out there, talking about leaks, is the roof, the big roof. And what's the status at this point, and the cost? Scatterco.
The board had authorized me to go, we've been working on the specs for the roof. The board had authorized me back in September, I guess it was, to go out to bid on a price for these. There's two portions of the roof. There's 1973 portion, which is the larger portion, and then 1990 portion. We went out to bid for the 1990 portion, and we got a bid price back the other day. We didn't go out to bid for the 1973 portion at that time because we still had some information we needed to get before we could put together specs to go out to bid. So that's where we are now. We met with the operations committee, the facilities committee last night. They're moving forward to talk to the full board next week, and then the board will decide where we want to go. My assumption is we'll be going out shortly to bid for the larger portion, and then we'll be looking for funding for that.
What, if you're looking for funding, why would you not approach the council for the whole thing and do it all
That is our hope.
at one time?
We just want to get the numbers together to be able to say, here's what the costs are, so you know what you're talking about.
And we
How
had-
far away are you from getting estimates on the full?
Be there in a month.
Because when we evaluation of the informer that, you know, we can possibly bond it. And so that's, you know, the avenue we hope to pursue.
And
And do the entire.
And then the council's there to help you, and get it accomplished. It's important we keep, if we're using one less building, that we keep all our other buildings going. Are there any other major concerns we have with repairs in any of the other structures?
Well, we have a long-term, Mr. Calhoun keeps up a 5-year capital plan. There will be, we have some issues that we're currently looking at for this year to the small chiller, is it called, the high school, that we're looking, but we have a good capital plan that we will present each year as we go through, and assuming we can, you know, the funding's available, whether through our regular operating budget or through the capital account. I think, right now, we're in good shape. That roof is a little bigger than most things, though.
And keep in mind that that's why the council's here to help when we need to.
Thank you.
John, maybe this is because I didn't think reading enough. I saw an electrician's van. I thought it was an electrical van, and I was going to impress you. Be impressed with going energy efficient on a van.
That would be a nice thing, it would be kind of it kind of be a real, first, I guess, in the town, but yeah, that would be a good idea.
An electric van for the electricians. That's a nice flow to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Jane.
I was very happy to see that you invested in another social worker for the elementary schools. I think that's a critical factor. I do worry about how large their caseloads are, and I know you just said that some of the elementary schools, the students are having more issues. It seems to be on the increase. How often does a student have access to the social worker during the school week? Would they be able to see the social worker every day if there was an ongoing issue?
You know, really it depends on the individual needs. Student or social workers really run the gamut of having classroom instruction, they could have small group instruction, they could have scheduled counseling with individual students, and then they can have that drop-in as needed type of access to them. Having a part-time, half-time social worker at both elementary schools this following year, I think will be huge. In the past, we've had very limited support from the social workers, so we have identified that there are increased needs at that level, and if we address it early on and work with families and students, you know, the rate of growth and the progress is, you know, rather than waiting until they're in middle school or high school, is really helpful.
Do you feel that just adding just this one person to share between the two schools is going to be enough, or are you going to be seeing that you're going to need additional?
Like Mr. Smith said, there's never enough. But we did increase, last year we increased one full social worker, and now this coming year we're increasing another one. So within a 2-year time span, we've increased 2 full-time social workers for the district. So I think we're headed in the right direction. And again, it's that collaborative psychologist, guidance, social workers working together. So we have some very effective teams.
Pete?
Thank you, Mayor. First, thank you, Angie, and the board for taking a look at maybe answering Councilman Bayless' question on the roof of looking at the whole piece rather than a partial piece. Appreciate you guys doing that. I think that's something that could definitely benefit doing it one time rather than multiple times. So thank you for that. I had a question concerning the revenue budget planning 2105-15-16 revenue recap. The revenue tab.
Or you'll get the book.
Yeah, the book, I'm sorry. I just had a couple quick questions.
The revenue. Or the one at the end?
So, just a couple of questions. One is the Medicaid reimbursements. In 13-14, you were $215,334, and it looks like projected, or this year is 35,000. Is it 135,000? Is that what we're looking at?
Well, what happened was that one year where you see revenue of Medicaid reimbursements 2 years in a row of 215 and then 118,000. They were look-back years that they were doing, and so they were money that we really got paid from prior years primarily. I will say, you can see I increased the revenue for next year to about $50,000. I have to tell, it's a hard number to identify, to be quite honest with you. So, I did increase it, and I have been looking at what we've got, but a lot of that was from prior years, when they went back to the state, or the feds did an audit on what the state had done.
And then, I guess it's the whole, accounts of Excel, where you show a list, a grand total spend of 1.329 million in actual 2013-14.
Yep.
And your adjusted 2014-15 is 975. Can you kind of expound on that a little bit?
Sure, primarily this is, there's a couple of lines that are tuition. The first line, Excel, inclusion tuition, and the fourth line down, tuition, Litchfield Hills program. Those are tuition lines that we get directly from students participating, but the rest of it is excess costs and reimbursement for special ed that we get from the state. I don't know how to, they don't tell us, we submitted for this money, we budget for it, as you know now. I find out sometime this week what we're gonna get for revenue for this year. The state has a cap on the amount of money, and it all depends on how much districts request. So if the districts request X amount, you only get 70%, you could get 80%, some years we've gotten as high as 90. But the fluctuations you see there are primarily due to what the state has available, because they cap the amount of money. And I will say, I'm sure my predecessor, and I know you tend to be conservative there, because that money offsets our costs. If we don't get it, we gotta find the money to cover costs somewhere else. So, you know, when you get more, it's nice, but it's one of the most frustrating parts of our job in terms of trying to project revenue, that you're doing it with your budget now, you're putting revenue numbers in there. At least you'll find out hopefully in June. I don't find out until a year and a half later what the actual number's gonna be. It's very frustrating.
And then, on the parking permit fees, actual 2012, 2013, 34,000, and then 2014, 2015, 0.
Oh, you know what? If you look two lines down, for some reason, I don't know if it was before me, they switched that to a different account line.
Okay.
So you'll see then it starts 31,000. I don't know.
And then, my last question is, has there been any thought on, additional revenue generation? For instance, partnering maybe with some of the, community colleges and offering, additional maybe working training programs?
I can speak, I mean, in some ways, we're working on expanding our adult ed program. This year we moved to online registration. If you haven't tried it yet, we've seen an increase in enrollment, and we've had, you know, almost, I'm not gonna move here, almost no issues before. People had to come with checks, and it was a nightmare. So moving to online enrollment has increased. We've also increased some of our government workforce competitive grants, so we can offer like CNA certification through there. So in some ways, it's almost counterintuitive to partner with some of the community colleges, because we're offering competing programs. And so a lot of them don't want to compete with us unless we stop offering or partner with us unless we stop offering our own certification programs. And we can offer them usually with much less overhead than the universities.
Is there a thought process of expanding that workforce training and the grants that you get? Is there an opportunity to expand that and to create?
Two things. Right now, workforce competitive grants are much more prevalent. They're much easier to get. There's much more money available, so yes. And the other piece is we're expanding kind of the director role at adult ed, because one of the challenges you have of expanding the program is in the past it was like a stipend position for somebody who had a full-time day job. So their ability to attend kind of community meetings, reach out to businesses and find out what kind of training they needed was limited. So now what we've done is in this budget, we've expanded the role so we can have a full-time adult ed director whose job it will be in part, we added hours to the week, so it's not just 4 hours, 4 nights a week. We've made it a real job so that it can support a person who can go to the Chamber of Commerce, who can reach out to businesses, who can sit at the table when meetings are happening with corporations saying what kind of training. They can go to the hospital and say, do you need nurses? Do you need RNs? What is it that you need that we can help support? Or what kind of training do your certified people need that they can get from us? So that's a huge piece of expanding that adult ed program. We really want to meet the needs of the community, and the way the program was structured, like our hands were tied. So, we've already expanded it, and this year, we've added, I wanna say 2 certification programs, and the plan is to really grow that over the next 2 years.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Any other questions? One of the things that we didn't hit on JPS here was the whole cost avoidance going on into the future. So while they are realizing some operating savings, this committee making the recommendation to the Board of Ed is a building that now, if the Board of Ed passes it on to the town, won't be spending dollars in the future trying to maintain this building, which I think your subcommittee estimated was about $13 million in the near future to upgrade that whole building. So that's something that no one said it was an elephant sitting in the corner, so I thought I'd just say it, because I did hear it at the meetings that I attended at the Board of Ed. And so you will be able to put all those program dollars, or more dollars into programs and less dollars into the maintenance of that old structure. So we appreciate that. I like the program stuff. If that's not it, sir, it is, great.